Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Did you know you can advertise on podcasts?
Don't act like you're not impressed.
Find out more at podvertise.com.au. That's podvertise with an s.com.au. Ozcast.
Yeah, thanks for joining us for another big episode of Greats with Garby and a chat with a man who has just landed the top job as coach of the Perth Glory in the A-League, his hometown club, if you don't mind, but also has a very interesting story to tell from his near 20-year career in professional football. A teen phenomenon, he was signed by West Ham at just 15 years of age, went on to star in their FA Youth Cup winning team in 1999 alongside the likes of Joe Cole and his best mate Michael Carrick. He made his Premier League debut for the Hammers and also played in the world's biggest league, the Hull City, and has been capped 17 times for the Socceroos, including as a starter in that infamous opening clash for Australia of the 2010 World Cup against Germany. He is Richard Garcia and he's with me now from Perth. Richie, hello to you, mate.
How are you, Garby? All good?
I'm good, mate. How are you? Because you've just landed a top job, but in some slightly acrimonious circumstances. We won't get into too much detail on that. But first and foremost, congratulations, coach of the Perth Glory, the team you would have watched as a teenager all those years ago. It must be a big thrill.
Yeah, great thrill. I mean, you know, I think I was at the first game that Glory ever played in the NSL days. So, you know, it was great to go and see a team finally in WA. You know, it was something that when you were a kid, you always wanted to see a team from WA play in the NSL and the Australian League. So, yeah, it's a great honour for me to be at the helm at the moment.
When it became apparent that Tony Popovic was going to leave, did you think straight away, all right, I want this job, I'm ready? How did it sort of transpire in your mind?
Yeah, look, I think as soon as I got into coaching, I thought I was ready. But, look, you're constantly learning and I think after being under Kenny Lowe for a couple of years and then, you know, now Popper for a couple of years, I felt like I've learned, you know, quite a bit and I've got strong ideas for myself as well. So I feel like I'm in a good position where I feel like I'm able to handle it.
Those ideas, I mean, how much of that was learnt during your time in England? We'll get into detail on all those stories, but, you know, 20 years at the top level and so many of those years in the English divisions and a lot of that at West Ham, how much of your ideas on the game were formulated during that period?
A huge amount. You know, I think you're always learning it, like I said before, and you tend to take, well, for me anyway, I tend to take little bits and pieces from different coaches, different players, and that's ever evolving. You know, you're always evolving as a coach and as a person, and back in the day as a player. So, you know, a lot of that information that I got back then is definitely still with me in my coaching days.
They say that the most important relationship in football is with the chairman. We know that Tony Sage is a bit different. We're not revealing anything special there. He's very unique and certainly the way in which he deals with the media can be controversial at times. What's your relationship like with Tony, and have you got an idea on how you need to manage that in your coaching days?
Look, Tony is Tony, and he's a wonderful asset for WA and for Perth Glory. You know, he's had the club for a long time now, and he's always got Perth at his heart. So I think that's the main thing. You know, he loves WA and he loves Perth, and you know, he wants the team to do well for the state. And I think that's the main focus for him, which is aligning with my focus, which is to get WA players and WA football as high up or as successful as we can get it. At
the moment, there's a bit of a pay drama going on within the whole league, but the Glory's obviously embroiled in it. It's unfair for you to comment on the specifics of that. That's not why I've got you on to chat today, and I wouldn't put you through that. If you want to comment on it, you can, of course. But how difficult is that for you, considering you're a new coach, you're trying to set up a squad? I'm sure you'd love to, even though there's a big break until the new season starts, get your methods into your players' minds as soon as possible. How tricky is this period, which we don't really know when it's going to end just yet, this pay drama?
Look, I think it's a tough one to deal with for me personally. Coming in, it would have been nice to just come into a settled group and just have to worry about the football side of it, which I'm trying to do. But there is that lingering issue, and the quicker that the players and the owners and everyone can come to an agreement, the better for the game. So I think that when that gets settled, it'll be football hat back on and getting ready and prepared for the league. Hopefully
that happens sooner rather than later. You touched on it right at the beginning, being at that first ever Perth Glory game. And I mean, I was there as well. If you were into football and a teenager in Perth during that era, I mean, it was just the best thing ever, going to Perth on a Sunday afternoon. Can you believe, if you cast your mind back to the teenager coming through, going to those Glory games, that you're now coaching this team or about to coach this team in the big flight?
No, you're right. I wouldn't have never dreamed it, And look, I think it was a fantastic atmosphere back then, and it still is. When the crowds come in at HBF, it's always a fantastic atmosphere. So, I mean, for me, if you told me back then that I'd be coaching Perth Glory, I would have told you you're crazy. But no, I'm very, very grateful and honoured to be in this position.
What kind of fan were you in those Perth Glory days? Because there are a number of teenagers who went, but pretty much messed around behind the grandstands there. And let's be honest, a lot of them went there just to flirt with girls, which was great. It was a big social gathering, right? It was an awesome way to just meet people. And there were some who were just fixated on the football, which was great to watch. How did you sort of approach those Sundays at Perth Oval?
Oh, I had a few friends who used to be out the back, so I used to float in between, so I get the best of both worlds.
It was a good time, and the football was fantastic. Look, every coach who comes in says, I want to bring back the glory days, but being a Perth boy, I dare say it's an almost stronger link entrenched in you when you think about the past and what you would like to deliver for this club.
Definitely, like you say, mate, I'm from WA. And I know the community, and I know how passionate the community is about football, and how much they want to see Perth Glory do well. I think when you walk through the city of Perth and you talk to people in the football community, they all have an opinion on the direction of the club and where it should go, and that's what makes it so good. Perth is Perth, and it's almost like a place where everyone sort of knows each other, so especially in the football community. So for me, it's great to be able to, now hopefully get those people in and around the club and get them on board to push WA football forward.
Football people having an opinion? You're kidding, Richard. Never in a million years. Hey, during those times in the old NSL, your brother was a big player for the Perth Glory. I know you played for them in the A-League, but going to watch your brother in those days and seeing him star for the club and sort of growing through football together, what does that mean to you, and what sort of influence might he have on your coaching career now as well?
Look, I think he's always been a positive influence on me throughout my career, even my playing days. He, being an older brother, he's always full of advice. So, look, going back to watching him at Perth Glory, I always wanted to have that at one stage in my career, and lucky enough, I got to do that. But yeah, he's always been a huge impact on me, and he always speaks sense and always speaks from a different point of view. I think he always tries to calm me down when I'm a little bit upset or anxious, and he's always got very good advice, which for me is sort of seen me through a lot of hard times when I was in England and playing away. He's someone who keeps me focused and makes sure that I'm heading in the right direction.
That might have started at a very young age, because let's get on to your playing days. I remember being, I think you're 3 years older than me, so I remember being about 11, 12 and hearing about this guy, Richard Garcia. Like, I think if you were a young player in Perth, even if I didn't play in the same league as you and obviously not the same age group, but you would hear about the star player Richard Garcia that was coming through. And I think everyone in WA football had heard about you during that time in the mid to early 90s. What was it like when you were a kid of 12, 13 and there's so much hype around you and there's so much discussion and so much attention when you are so young? What was that like to go through?
To be honest, mate, I didn't even know there was that. Until you mentioned it, I wouldn't have had a clue. That was sort of went straight over my head. I used to just like playing. I used to love going out there and scoring goals, and I just remember being with the ball most of the time. If it wasn't with my brother, it was with friends, and if it wasn't with friends, it was at training. So, I just loved playing, and obviously I must have been pretty good at it. So I think I probably enjoyed it more than most because I was good at it. So I didn't really understand any of that hype or any of that. I just played for the love of it and enjoyed it.
You must have realised when West Ham came calling, though, when you were 15 years of age and brought you over to England. I still remember the image in the paper that came out when you signed. I think you were sitting at your school desk, and it was a big story in the West Australian about this teenager who was going to West Ham. I mean, what was that like? Surely it must have hit you then that, wow, I mean, this is something in terms of the hype around me.
No, look, I think I was so ambitious back then that I didn't realise what a big deal it was, and especially at that age. Now that I sit back, it's only since sort of coming back and seeing my nieces or seeing my kids and seeing how young 15 was. Back then I didn't think I was young. I thought I was, mature and ready to make a move overseas by myself and all that sort of stuff. To be honest, I don't even know how my parents let me go by myself. I think that's the trust they had in me, and that's the trust they had in my mental state and my ability. So for me, I'm very thankful that they allowed me to go for starters. But mate, it didn't really sink in back then. I think I was a little bit naive to it all as far as how big of a move it was and what it actually meant. It's only now, as you get older, you sort of really realise those things.
But when you go over there and you walk into a club like West Ham and you're in an academy and there was another Aussie there, Michael Ferrante, so I dare say that helped a bit, but you're pretty much a fish out of water compared to everyone else. What were those early stages like, stepping into an environment like that?
Look, I think I broke the ice straight away when I went in with the youth team. I sort of walked into the change room and just sort of said, who's going to get my kit then? As if like I'd been there for years. And straight away they were sort of all taken back and, started laughing really. And thought, who does this guy think he is? But then once they got to know me, all of a sudden, it was a joke, an ongoing joke. And, I think people took to me straight away, which became easy for me, And in the end, you sort of do your talking on the park. And I think once they saw that I wasn't just here for a joke or it wasn't just a trial, that they saw I had talent, that, then they take you into the group.
What's life like in the digs? I remember about a year or two ago when Man United came to Perth and played that charity game. I had a chat with Bojan Djordjic and Danny Webber the one night, who told me that when they were in the United Academy, guys like Mark Bosnich and Dwight York would stop by and give them some money, like £100, £200, and go have a night out. Go enjoy yourself, boys, and almost treat the young players. Were there any stories like that from your time in the digs that are similar? Yeah,
look, there were loads. I think we had a decent bunch of older pros at West Ham, and people like Trevor Sinclair, Frank Lampard, they were, and even Rio was, they were young guys, so they'd just come out of the academy and were making strides into the first team. So we had a good link between the youth and the senior guys that, they would invite us out and, they would make us go and get the drinks and, we would have to, they would pay for it, but we would have to go and get the rounds in. So, we got used and abused, but, it was good to be in and around those guys and be part of it. And even within training, we had such good older pros, and I think that's important to have older pros that are good people to be able to now bring on the next generation. And for me, I think that's what we had at West Ham, a bunch of good older pros who helped us out not only on the park but off the park.
And an amazing production line. I mean, Lampard and Ferdinand a year or so before you, and then in your youth team, Michael Carrick, Joe Cole, and many others. What was it about West Ham that produced so much talent during that era? Was it just a bit of luck or the cycle, or was there something else that was special about it?
No, look, I think the recruitment was very good. The recruitment was very good for the guys who came in, and also then Tony Carr, who was head of the academy for a long time, was a very good coach and really knew how to get through to players. And, he didn't really pull any punches. He never held back, but he also knew that, you were kids, and I think he knew how to bridge that gap between the mentality of a young kid to now into a young professional footballer. And
obviously you had huge success with your youth cup team. You won the league, but then also the cup, which was the big deal in those days, winning the FA Youth Cup. And you won it 9-0 on aggregate over Coventry, home and away, 3-0 the first leg, 6-0 in the second leg. And you scored in every single game leading to that triumph, playing alongside, as I said before, Joe Colden and Michael Carrick. I mean, how special a time in your life was that? It was unreal, really. I think I didn't realise the size of the competition until you started turning up to games and there were actual crowds, because we'd get like maybe 100 people, 150 people. And I think, to be fair, during that season, the crowd started to grow. I think we had a bit of a reputation about our team throughout the season, and slowly, even when we used to play the games at the training ground, it went from like 50 to 100 to 150 to 200. Then, by the time we got to the end of it, and it was the FA Youth Cup final, I think we got 25,000 to the second leg. People were still walking through the door while we'd started playing. They had to open up another stand. So, I remember looking over to one of the other boys and going, "What's going on here, mate?" The boys were sort of like looking at each other going, is this normal? People were just rolling in halfway through the game. So, that for us was the most special thing, that we were making an impact on the West Ham fans. And, I think our reputations grew after that. It certainly did. And when you've got players like Joe Cole and Michael Carrick, it certainly helps. And you're a key part of that team, along with the two of them. Can you put into words the quality that they had and the link-up that you had with Cole and Carrick during those years? Yeah, look, Joe was away at sort of the Linshore, which is their version of the OAS, and he would come sort of now and again to come train and then go back and then come back to play a few games. And then slowly that became more full-time. But obviously Mike, we were in digs together or across the road, and, we formed a bond really quickly. And we used to, he'd play like a second striker and I'd be the striker, and then we formed the bond on the park as well. So, I think throughout that team, it's still very special. And I think they had a reunion a few years ago, which was a pretty special thing that they did, and that they remembered that as far as the club is concerned. But, it was like, talking to the guys, it was like old times, So when you go through success, I think you always have that bond with that group of people, no matter where you are and what you do. And your bond with Michael Carrick is really special. You're very close friends. I think you were both in the wedding party at each other's respective weddings. You were invited to play in his testimonial at Old Trafford recently, which is an amazing story for an Aussie 20-odd years on from when you played together in a youth team. Why did you become such good friends with Michael Carrick, and how have you managed to maintain that friendship? Well, obviously being in digs together was part of it, but I think we were just similar in our mindsets as far as football, as far as life, and, we enjoyed each other's company. And then eventually when we got a bit older, and girlfriends started getting in the mix and things like that, the girls really got on really well as well, which helped. And yeah, we sort of made a special effort to make sure that no matter where we were in the country, that we'd make an effort to go and see each other. So it'd be either me, driving up from London to Manchester, or eventually Hull to Manchester and vice versa, then coming down to London or over to Hull. So I think it's just a special relationship between the two families that that everyone concerned is happy with, and we always make a special effort for each other. He's getting into coaching now with Manchester United as well. He's heavily involved with their first team. Do you speak about that together as well, and do you talk about your coaching journeys now? Definitely. That's been a good one for me to be able to pick his brain, and we spoke at length when United came here and about coaching and about the hurdles that
he probably had to overcome, and even the hurdles that, you know, the new coaching team have had to overcome, as well as, you know, just all the other things, and how to keep focused on the football rather than letting all the other outside stuff, you know, influence what you do and how you go about things.
Did you ever have a serious talk to him about coming to play in the A-League? Because there were some rumours once upon a time.
I definitely did. When I first took the job with Kenny, I thought he was sort of not on the outer. Van Gaal was there, and he wasn't sort of enjoying it too much. I said, you know, come out for a year. You know, it'd be nice for the family. You know, spend a year in the sunshine. But I think then they changed manager, and then his position changed. I think Mourinho came in.
Yep.
Well, I'm pretty sure he did anyway. And then, yeah, it all changed for him, and he said, look, I would have loved to, but no can do, which is understandable. United, Australia, I don't know which one I'd pick.
Would it be nice to have him for a season? But thank you on behalf of everyone in Australian football for giving it a crack. Anyway, going back to your West Ham days together with Michael Carrick and your move through the ranks, I mean, it looked, Rich, as if everything was tracking towards a long stay in the West Ham team. You'd made your debut in the League Cup. You went on loan to Leyton Orient and you flourished. You scored, I think, 4 goals in 20 games for a youngster. That's a good return. And you're getting some chances with West Ham, and then you do your knee. You've done your ACL 3 times, but the first time doing it at the age of 19 when you're really on your way forwards. How devastating was that for you? Obviously physically, but mentally as well.
Yeah, it was a hard one to come back from. And being at that young age and not realising probably the gravity of the injury, possibly didn't do the right things as far as rehab is concerned, and probably didn't come back to being myself for a bit longer because of that. So that was definitely a learning curve, and it probably hampered my future at West Ham for a little while, especially in Harry's eyes as well, you know, because he always used to say, you know, you haven't come back the same since you got injured. So, you know, a bit of that was down to me and my mentality at the time, and part of that was, you know, possibly, you know, not doing the right things to be able to get back into form. So, yeah, it had a huge impact on the way my career went, I thought.
You still carved out a very good career, but watching from afar, it looked as if you'd lost a bit of pace because of the knee injury, and you almost found a way to get around that in terms of the style of play that you started to bring into your game and the type of footballer that you were. Is that a fair assessment? Did you modify your game and just learn to deal with it after that knee injury?
Look, I think part of it was that, but then once I did start getting back into form, I think my versatility, I wouldn't say hurt me. It hurt me and helped me at the same time. You know, I was someone that could play pretty much anywhere. I think I've played in every position in a game for either one club or another. So I think when you're not competing against one player, you're competing against 11 because you are so versatile. And that's what happened once Harry left. I started to get a chance and I started to go forward, but it was in many different positions. So you just get the hang of playing up front again, and then all of a sudden you'd be shifted out wide, and then you play 2 games there, and then all of a sudden someone would get injured and you go play centre mid. And, you know, they're all different actions and they're all different, you know, your awareness has got to be different. And, you know, so things like that didn't really go for me in that respect because I wasn't really in direct competition with one player. I was almost there to plug a hole. Fair
enough. And, you know, you moved from Colchester where you were doing okay and sort of getting your career back on track, and then you go to Hull and it really kickstarts again for you, and it just has such a big impact on the rest of your footballing days at the top flight. Getting promoted with Hull, that period, scoring big goals and then getting them back into the Premier League. When you reflect on your time in football, where does that sit in the memory bank?
Look, that's probably one of the highlights, definitely for sure. But I think for me, the hard work I did at Colchester and the return, the step backwards to go forwards, and the mentality that I had to have to do that was the highlight for me, because that actually gave me the strength to be able to then go on and do that sort of stuff. And then when you finally get there, it becomes like even more special because of the fact that you've worked so hard for it. So it's definitely a massive, massive highlight, especially in front of 87,000 at Wembley. So, that for me would be a season that I'll never forget.
Yeah, the days in the lower leagues, the League One type football in England, it's tough, isn't it? I don't think people fully understand here how taxing it can be on the body and the state of training grounds and even the state of pitches and the style of football you can play from time to time. I mean, it's a really tough brand of football to play, sometimes 2 games a week, and then the training on top of it, isn't it?
Definitely. I think from going from West Ham, where we were playing nice, attractive football, and going down to Colchester, and it was a bit more agricultural, and you had to learn a little bit more, and the training ground wasn't as nice. And like I said, like you were saying, that those things are the things that make you stronger, and the things that make you realise that you want to carve out a career for yourself, and to be able to then overcome all that and still go where I went. That's probably the biggest thing that I'm proud of, that I was able to get back to where I wanted to be.
You played in the Premier League for Hull at a time when so many Aussies were in the Premier League, or they were just coming out of that era. And let's be honest, we were spoiled. When you look at the situation now, we were completely spoiled. And there was so much focus on Harry and Dukes and Timmy and Lucas and Emo for good reason. Did you sometimes feel like, hang on, I'm another Aussie here, I'm still playing in the Premier League week in, week out, a little bit of attention wouldn't go astray? Did that ever cross your mind?
No, I think because they were already in that spotlight, I never sort of expected it. You know what I mean? Like I never expected that type of attention, and I sort of always went under the radar a little bit. I think that's a bit of my personality. I'm someone who doesn't like to have that attention so much. But it was such a good time because at the time I was playing, I had people like Grella, Timmy, Harry, Swartzy, all in the Premier League. So it was nice to be able to then go on national team camps and then come across each other during the week and play against each other. So that time for me as well was very special because such a great bunch of guys, being able to have a bit of a friendly face as far as being another Aussie face playing against those guys was excellent.
Is there a Premier League moment that stands out for you, Rich? Be it a goal you scored, a stadium you played in, an opponent you came up against, anything that really stands out for you perhaps above all others?
Not really. I think the whole 2 years was an interesting journey. The thing that probably stands out is the pressure and the mentality of people when we were under pressure in the second year and we're going to get relegated. That type of atmosphere. Because I've normally been in sort of pretty successful sides. We got promoted with Colchester, did well in the championship the year after, was in the championship with Hull, got promoted, then did all right the first year in the Premier League. But that second year at Hull was, that's probably, I won't say a highlight, but it really stands out for me because of the amount of pressure that was on us, not only from within, but from the media and things like that. It's something that I probably hadn't experienced before. So that really sort of stands out in my mind as being a wow moment. Can
you expand on why that's the case and why it stands out for you so much? What's it like being in a relegation battle, a situation that has such a big impact on people's lives?
I think exactly because of that, because it has such a big impact on people's lives. And, you sort of know that it's going to affect not just you, but the other people at the club, the backroom staff, the lunch lady, the kit man. It's going to impact on everyone, and it's it's something that when you walk through the streets of a city, you get like a mixed reaction on where you're at. Some people are supportive, and some people are calling your names or telling you where you're going wrong. So I think that's the biggest thing. And then for me, the biggest one was how much the media harped on about it, and how different people reacted to that pressure. And that was the interesting thing, to see how people reacted to that pressure and the possibility of being relegated.
What was your relationship like with the fans? Was it the strongest at Hull? And when you speak about that connection, what exactly is it like?
It's a difficult one because, as always, it's a game of opinions. And, I'm sure there are plenty of people that have got fond memories of me and others that probably at the time maybe didn't like me or didn't like the way I played or thought we could have better players in the team. But I think every player comes across once in a while in their career, or But that's the beauty of football. It's about opinions.
Exactly right. 2010 World Cup, speaking of opinions, Rich, I think everyone was surprised when your name gets called out to start for Australia against Germany, and Harry Kewell's on the bench, and Mark Bresciano's on the bench as well. A massive call by Pim Verbeek, of course. Can you talk us through just what that was like and how it all came to be, that decision, which, of course, is one that's so heavily discussed in the Australian game?
Look, I think H wasn't really match fit at the time. He'd been struggling for a while. And Timmy and I were doing really well in training together. Our partnership in training was fantastic, and we were scoring a lot of goals within that. But it was just a change for me. I'd been playing out wide and then all of a sudden going up front again, my versatility. So, look, for me, it was a huge honour to be able to go and start the game, and especially the first game in the World Cup. But I think we were a bit harshly spoken about. If you look at Germany within that World Cup, they beat England by 4, they beat Argentina as well. We also had someone sent off as well. So when you sit back and take a look at it all, it was a bit of harsh criticism, but that's part and parcel of being in the game. It's part and parcel of being at a World Cup. But for me, it was a huge honour, and for me, the highlight of my career, playing at the World Cup and starting the first game for my country.
Great to hear, and something that a lot of people forget, because everyone discusses the controversial decision and, of course, the result, is that you had a damn good chance to put Australia ahead early on.
Yeah, look, I think if I'd scuffed it, it would have gone in. But I don't think I've hit a cleaner one in my life with my left foot. I hit it so clean. But yeah, I always look back on that and say, mate, if I just scuffed it, it would have trickled in. But yeah, look, it wasn't to be. That's part and parcel of it as well. Sometimes they go in, sometimes they don't.
Exactly right. And look, if it does go in, the whole narrative of that changes, and it's a masterstroke by Pim Verbeek, of course, to start you. But that's the game of football. That World Cup turned around so quickly. The draw against Ghana and then the win against Serbia sadly didn't go through. But there was a dramatic turnaround after the performance against Germany. What do you make of those few days in between the Germany game and the Ghana game, and the way in which things turned inside the playing group? What's your recollection of that?
I think it made the group tighter. I think the group actually felt that it was unwarranted, the things that were being said, and it just made us even closer as a full squad. It is a World Cup, it is about the whole squad. So I think there's a real determination to go out in the next game and prove everyone wrong. So look, I think it was virtually the same results as Germany's 4 years ago, but we didn't go through. So maybe the goal difference against Germany was the factor, but results-wise, it was still a win, a loss, and a draw. So for me, I think after the heights of Germany, there was a massive expectation on that next year. So right or wrong, I still think it was a decent World Cup considering. And
how do you sum up your Socceroos career in all? 17 caps. You entered amid the hype of the golden generation, just after 06, but with enough super talent. How do you reflect on your Socceroos days and the journey that you had with the national team?
I loved every minute of it. I wish I had a little bit more, and I wish I'd been available for a lot more. Again, 3 ACLs writes you out of a lot of time and a lot of football. So when I look back at that part of my career, it would have been nice to represent the country a little bit more and be on that stage for more of my career.
You're the first player to have ever been contracted at Hull City to start in a World Cup game. There's a nice picture of you up on the wall at Hull City, which I've seen myself, to note that momentous achievement, of course. That must be something that sits with you rather nicely, I dare say. Definitely.
To first and foremost, to represent your country is a huge honour. So, then to be the first player in their history to do it is even a bigger honour. So, something I'm very proud of, and something the kids will hopefully bring a smile to their face when they realise for how big of an achievement it is.
Considering you came through that generation which produced so much talent, and now you're involved in coaching, and you have been at Perth for a little while, so you're at the coalface of youth development, and you have to really bring that into your own first team now at Perth. What's your take on where Australian football's at in that sense? Everyone's obviously got strong opinions on where the game is going and player development. Where do you think it's at right now, and what issues are there that need solving?
I think games is the biggest issue, and the age that we're sort of having to make a decision on players. There's no in-between in Australian football. You know, we're making decisions on players at 20 years old because you have to put them in the cap, or, you know, they have to get something out of it. And then they lack games, you know. NYL was under 20s, so it then becomes hard. Where does a player go after 20? You know, you've either got to put them in the first team squad or they have to go to NPL. So the amount of games that they play compared to everywhere else in the world is a massive loss. You know, they need to be playing games, and the more games they can play, the better, and competitive games. So that for me is the biggest thing that's going wrong. There is no in-between stage. There's okay at the bottom end, okay at the top end, but we need to bridge that gap a little bit better. And
the talent levels, I mean, looking at, for example, the Perth production line, which has always been strong, WA football, and the players that have come through over the years, how good are the kids in the Perth Glory Academy? I mean, how much enthusiasm should Australian football fans have about the talent at that level? There's some very, very talented people in those teams. And, you know, I think that's across Australia. Now it's about trying to give them a chance. And, you know, like I said before, you know, they don't have that bridge. So, you know, they need a little bit more time. People are making their debuts all across the world at 23, 24. You know, we're expecting those guys to be starters at 20, 22, 21. So that little bit more time to develop, that little bit more time to mature as players and as people. And then by the time they do get to 23, 24, they're complete players, and then they can kick on with their careers. But, you know, for me, I didn't really play senior football, a lot of senior football, until I reached 23. So that's when I pretty much started playing regularly senior football. But there was always that bridge for me to then have competitive games before that. So, you know, you fall off the cliff at some point if you don't play games. Exactly right. Look, I'm sure you want to bring some of those young players through, but no doubt you'd want to have some experienced players in your squad there at Perth as well. Have you got an idea amid all this pay drama of what talent you might be able to find from overseas for the upcoming season, or is it too difficult at this stage to work that out? I think at this stage, you know, you have your ideas, but, you know, the reality of it is probably something else. Because you don't know which way it's going to go. If it all goes well, then, you know, we're looking okay. But then again, you've got to be able to then get those players through the door and make sure that it all falls into place. But I think first and foremost, we've got to look after the guys that are here and make sure that they're happy with the way things are going and keep them at the club. Fair enough. Rich, hopefully it all works out for you beautifully at Perth. I think everyone's excited to watch the journey, and we all know when things go well at the Glory, that place gets absolutely rocking, and with the hometown boy as coach, that should add a little bit more flavour to it all. I've got a few questions to finish on though, which I tend to ask to all my football guests on the podcast, and I'm putting you on the spot a bit, but I think you've been asked it enough or considered it enough to be able to answer it reasonably quickly. First and foremost, the best player you ever played with during your football career? Paolo Di Canio. Easy, hey? That was pretty easy, yeah. Oh, look, Castro's probably up there, but I'd have to say Di Canio. Di Canio was an absolute freak. Ball on a string. Look, Del Piero, I played with Del Piero as well, but I played with a few good players, but I think Di Canio, because he was in his prime. He was in his prime when I got him, and he made it look so easy. What was he like as a personality as well? Because he's incredibly extroverted. What was he like one-on-one? He was very much the same.
there's some very interesting stories I could tell about him, but probably can't air those out.
Oh, share one with us.
No, I can't. No, but he was always a good guy to have around, a real character. Another guy that was good with the young guys as well. He always would have time for us. He'd come and grab us and do extra finishing and things like that. So when you've got people of his calibre still willing to take the time to take a bunch of young guys and take them for a finishing session, that just sums him up as a person as well,
Fantastic. Best player you ever played against?
Oh, direct opposition or in the team?
Either way.
Look, I want to say it's probably not a big player, but I'd say Ashley Cole. That time at Chelsea, he ran me into the ground, and I remember thinking, is he ever going to stop running? I think they were so dominant against us, and they kept the ball so well, and I ended up almost playing right back. But yeah, he didn't stop running all game, and I was thinking, mate, this is a hard one today.
That's a fair call. Best coach you ever had, Richie?
Oh, that's a tough one. I don't think one in particular. I think there's been good bits from every single one. They've all had their real pluses, and I think that's something I've tried to take out of it. Each and every one of them, the pluses. So they all have their good positive parts.
Tony Popovich, obviously you worked with, never played under, but he's had a big impact at Perth over a couple of years, and now he moves on. You take over from him. But what makes him so special? We've all heard Popper's stories, but for you, what makes him such a brilliant coach?
I think he has a clear idea of where he wants to go, and he makes sure that everyone is on the same page and makes sure that the players know where they stand and the clear picture of the way he wants to play, and that then moves on to the players. The players buy into it, and he does it very well. He goes into detail very well, and I think that's what makes him such a special coach.
Hopefully you've picked up a lot from him and many others over the years, including Harry Redknapp during your time at West Ham. Rich, loved your stories. Thanks so much for sharing them with us and for going over what's been a fantastic career. And we wish you all the best in your new journey there at Perth. It's a tricky time at the moment, but hopefully one that Australian football gets through, and then you can go on to fulfilling your dreams, managing the side that you grew up adoring.
Thanks for having me on, mate. Yeah, look, I'm looking forward to the season ahead, and hopefully we can do it again, and I'm doing well in the league. That'd be great.
That'd be great. Rich Garcia, thanks so much for joining me on Greats with Garby and sharing with everyone your story. All the best during your time as coach of the Glory.
Thanks, mate.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.